All right. So the question today, it's Tyrese Maxey and question mark. That is what we're starting with today. Tyrese Maxey and question mark. I think it's an interesting conversation, and we got a great guest here with us today to really dive into the Sixers thing. Trending in the AM, it starts in 30 seconds. And a very good morning, everybody, and welcome to Trending in the AM right here on Philadelphia Sports Network. We're live, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. You know the drill. Like, share, retweet, follow, turn notifications on, shout it from the rooftops. Trending in the AM, it is the #1 morning show in the Philadelphia area. It's the only one where your opinions actually matter. Like I said, we're live, and I'm Phil Stiefel, your host every single morning here. And we got a special guest today. I love this guy. This guy does so much great work on social media, Edge of Philly Sports Party on Broad. MrCrockpot himself, Deibs. Good morning. How you doing?
What is going on, Phil? Thanks for having me on, man. I'm excited and honored to join Trending in the AM, man. Love your show. I try to listen every single morning. I'm an early riser too, so dude, it's an honor, man. Thank you.
No, it's an honor to have you, man. I the last time we did a show together was last year when I was on your show with the over/under predictions, and I'm already percolating in the back of my head. Some bold over-unders waiting for that show schedule to happen. And let me tell you, I got some really – you thought 18.5 sacks for Hassan Reddick last year was bold. Well, I got some bold ones floating around in my mind. So I'm excited for football season to get started this year.
It's wild, right? Like, this is the most excited I have ever been for an Eagles season. It sucks they aren't out there right now practicing, but – man, the end of July could not come soon enough, man. The hype is outrageous.
Yeah, I can't wait. But football, that's later. We're going to talk Sixers right now to get this show started, and make sure you got your comments coming in, guys. Anything you want to talk about Sixers related? I know we had some pre-show comments with Sixers in there already in the comments. We'll get them to in a little bit. There's been a lot of talk, and obviously Doc Rivers spoke yesterday. We had Nick Nurse with Brian Windhurst the day before and all. So we're learning a lot of things. It's almost like too convenient that they both spoke to different media people 2 days or like a day apart. It's almost like they knew one was talking, so the other had to schedule an appointment to talk with somebody somewhere. It was I'm not off base there. There's definitely some coincidence there with that, right?
Oh, no question. There's no doubt that, and albeit with Bill, who is a Celtics guy, I can't believe Doc did the Sixers dirty like that. His legacy in Philadelphia that guy is just an egomaniac, a self-fulfilling excuse me. I can't believe how he comes out and just continuously throws guys under the bus after a playoff loss while pumping himself up at the same time. It's outrageous, man. Just good riddance. Just glad that doofus is out of Philadelphia.
I mean, it basically, I didn't even listen to the whole thing. I listened to like 5 minutes of it. The clips that I saw, then I went and clicked, and I listened to like the first 5. I'm like, this is just proving everything I've been saying about Doc Rivers since the day he was hired. I said it was a terrible hire to begin with. After his first year, I'm like, I want this guy out. And everyone's like, he's one of the best coaches, this and that. Everyone's telling me I'm wrong. I'm like, no, you listen to that interview, you're like, yeah, I was spot on 110% on my feelings on him. And like you said, good freaking riddance.
He gives you nothing on offense. That's why they brought in Nick Nurse. We'll get into that. Yeah. But the dude literally just rolls a ball in the court and says, here Embiid, here James Harden. The guy has zero creativity. His adjustments, lack of adjustments in game 6 and 7 was the nail for Sixers. Yes, the Sixers stars failed. They failed. I can't say that further, but he never adjusted to the double bigs, and that was the end of it. And I just cannot stand the guy. I don't like people like that, Phil. Like, I don't like people that will just their shit doesn't stink. You know what I mean? Like they can't. That lack of accountability that lack of ability to look at yourself in the mirror. I'm glad they're bringing in a guy like Nick Nurse, a guy that's going to light a fire under Joel Embiid. Joel Embiid needs a kick in the ass. That's what Nick Nurse is going to do. Could you imagine Nick Nurse with Ben Simmons, who's refusing to get to the free throw line? He would call his ass out.
Yeah.
From day one.
I was just thinking that. You were saying that. I'm like, oh, I hope he brings up Ben Simmons, because that's exactly like Ben Simmons. Don't beat this Sixers organization since day one under Brett Brown has not had anybody holding people accountable. And I've brought this up 100 times on this show. There was a game, I don't even remember. It was a regular season game like 5 years ago, that Brett Brown was when he was still the coach. Ben Simmons had 9 first half turnovers. And I put out a tweet. This was before I had any following or anything like that. And I put out a tweet. If I was Brett Brown, I'd be benching Ben Simmons' ass right now, because that's unacceptable. Let him realize that that's unacceptable. He went out, turned the ball over like 4 more times in the second half. We lost by like 4 points. And I was like, this is the problem with this team. And it just went from Brett Brown right to Doc Rivers. And yes, sometimes when you have a coach like Nick Nurse that calls players out or doesn't worry about it, sometimes that can wear thin, especially in an NBA that's controlled by the players, not the coaches, not the owners, not the teams. But sometimes you need that as well. And if Joel Embiid can't handle that heat, well, then that explains everything we need to know about Joel Embiid, because I'm going to say it right now, and I've been kind of hinting at it. This upcoming season is basically Joel Embiid's legacy on the line, whether he's the real deal or not. And there's so much that Nick Nurse can do to sway it left or sway it to the right. And it's either going to be a big blow up or it's going to be one of the greatest things in Sixers history.
Yeah, the days of coddling stars is over.
Yeah.
Joel Embiid, you're right, Phil. Joel Embiid is under the microscope. His legacy was on the line. It's been on the line. It's crazy how we went through Ben Simmons can't make a goddamn free throw to now the narrative is Joel Embiid can't get out of the second round. There's always a narrative with these guys. You have to question whether or not Joel Embiid has it up here. Is he mentally strong enough to be able to stay healthy and do what he needs to do in the playoffs and things like that? I mean, there's some red flags with Nick Nurse that we'll get into. Like, he ran his starters into the ground, heavy minutes. That is going to change in 2023, 2024. Joel Embiid has to change his mental and physical approach coming into this season. And I'm not saying that he wasn't in shape. He had the best regular season we've ever seen. He was awesome. He played more minutes. He was terrific. But it's still the same story. He gets hurt or something. He has like a nagging injury that impacts his effectiveness come playoff time. And everything is on the line. And if you're not Daryl Morey and you're not sitting there taking phone calls, at least taking phone calls and surveying what the landscape looks like for a Joel Embiid trade. I'm not saying they trade Joel Embiid. It's not going to happen. It only happens if you request a trade. But come like next trade deadline, if things aren't moving in the right direction for the Sixers, you have to think about it, because here we are. And there's not a lot of options or assets in the treasure chest for the Sixers moving forward.
Absolutely. You know what? It's funny because I never know where the morning show conversation is going to go. We start talking, it goes with, and I did a whole show based off of your show of your proposed trade, all your proposed trade of Joel Embiid, and I said the same thing. It's not going to happen. It's just not. First and foremost, because the whole culture, the whole accountability thing, it's a culture in the organization as a whole, and it starts with Josh Harris and stuff like that. And Josh Harris would never approve a Joel Embiid trade unless Joel Embiid demanded out, because Josh Harris likes money. Joel Embiid makes you a lot of money. You're going to make the playoffs always with Joel Embiid. You're always going to at least be in contention. So he would never trade that meal ticket of his. So that's that. But like you said, you got to kind of at least listen, just to gauge, just to see if you get to that point what the value is. And anybody that says you can't trade Joel Embiid and get great value for him, I always just say, look at that Rudy Gobert trade. If you're going to get 5 first-round picks for Rudy Gobert, you're going to get a crap ton of stuff in return for Joel Embiid. So, you're not going to get another MVP for him, but you're going to get something.
And you're still going to get value for him if you look at next offseason as well. Like, unless that's got to be like a little low-key storyline, is just keep Embiid healthy for next regular season, because his value is still going to be as high, I think, next offseason.
I agree. Injury happens to him that like really, really slows him down. Yeah, you're still going to get value from him next year.
Morey's on the clock, man.
Absolutely.
He's got to make a move to put this team in the right direction. I give him the benefit of the doubt. Doc Rivers was hired before Daryl Morey came to Philadelphia. For the first time, I think we actually have a GM and head coach that are aligned in what they want to do on the court. So we'll see what Morey's got. But, I mean,
that brings up the question, what does Morey do this offseason? We have a treasure chest of emptiness in assets. We've got the James Harden situation. Obviously, the new rumor this week is Bradley Beal. There's going to be a new rumor every single week that I'm going to talk about on this show, I'm sure. So I posed a poll question yesterday. Okay, we're about 300 votes in. I said, because Joel Embiid's going to happen for sure. What's up, Mitch? How you doing this morning, my man? So I posed the question on Twitter. I said, obviously Joel Embiid's here. So Tyrese Maxey and who do you want in your backcourt in 2023? Tyrese Maxey and Harden. Tyrese Maxey and Bradley Beal. Tyrese Maxey, Fred VanVleet. Tyrese Maxey and other. And I know you responded when we were talking in private messages. You've got an interesting answer that's not going to be popular. And I have a feeling I know what your answer is. So that being said, if you're Daryl Morey, who are you putting in the backcourt? And how are you making that happen this offseason?
If I'm Daryl Morey, and believe me, they're not going to do this, because I do think James Harden returns to Philadelphia on a 2 or 3 year deal. I think that's the hang up. I think everything we're seeing with the Rockets, and I don't understand why the Rockets would sign James Harden. It makes zero sense. That would be just the biggest jaw dropper if they gave him that 3-4 year deal that he wants. I think that's the hang up. I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't bring James Harden back.
Is there a scenario in your head where the Houston rumors are just stuff that James Harden and his people are making leak, that it's there just to try to, he knows he's not really going to get 200+ million from anybody, so he needs this information leaking just to squeeze out a couple more $1 million in this next contract?
There's no doubt about it. Could it be like he wants that 4th year to be guaranteed, where the Sixers are saying, no, we're going to make it a team option? I think that's what this is. I think James Harden is a smart guy. He kind of, what all the reports about him kind of going by the beat of his own drum, I think he knows what he's doing. I think he knows the Sixers are in a bind. I think he knows that, there's not a lot that they could do moving forward for 2023, 2024. And I know that they got to move on from Tobias and take, cents on a dollar. So there's a lot kind of doom and gloom when it comes to the Sixers outlook. But for me personally, I would not bring James Harden back. I think the bulk of 2023, 2024 is not on getting past the second round. It's seeing what you got in, a Tyrese Maxey. I think there are ways around finding success. You mentioned culture. You look at Nick Nurse in 2019. I've been kind of obsessed over the last 2-3 weeks, kind of digging and diving into that 2019 Toronto Raptors season. And it's fun because when you're deep diving into those stats, like you look back to those Brett Brown offenses, like they were right there, man. In terms of like motion offense, assists, moving the ball, they were all right there. What I see is a Toronto Raptors squad back in 2019 that was built in transition. They had wings and wings and wings, getting deflections, turning defense into offense. That's what I want to see. That's the culture change I want to see in Philadelphia. So I measure not just success with getting Joel Embiid into the Eastern Conference Finals. It's about more so getting out of cap hell, because I think there are some small moves they could make, but it's also A, finding what they got in Tyrese Maxey. It's B, surrounding Embiid and Maxey with wings, guys that can run, guys that can shoot, guys that can switch on defense, provide help defense, get out in transition, play defense on the perimeter, getting young again, young legs. The Sixers have arguably the best.
Daryl Morey should just hire you. You've just laid out a perfect plan for this offseason. I mean, Daryl, if you're listening, I know I've crushed you on this show. Hire my man here because he's got the answers here.
No, there are no answers in terms of winning a championship, but the Sixers already have one of the best transition weapons in the NBA, just waiting and waiting and waiting. Nick Nurse, I think, can unlock that by just maybe move Tobias for a young, exciting wing that could grow and, get out and help Tyrese Maxey go. Does that fit with Joel Embiid? Absolutely not. But I think you look at the Sixers in the playoffs, they were dead last in average time on offense. They were fourth worst in the playoffs in average speed. I want to see a team built around Maxey that gets him going down the court. And that's what this is about. It's about seeing what you got in Tyrese Maxey. Personally, I don't think he's a distributor. I don't think he's a floor general like a CP3, like Mitch is mentioning. But what I think he is in the right system, I think he maybe be able to do it under Nick Nurse.
Yeah, so I agree with everything you said. It's kind of been basically everything you said is summing up what I've been talking about for the last couple of weeks. We could talk Chris Paul, those rumors, Bradley Beal, which people think Bradley Beal, and they're like, oh, that's a great idea. Bradley Beal is probably worse off for this team than James Harden. I would rather give James Harden a 4-year max contract than trade assets for Bradley Beal at this point. Like, that's how much I think Bradley Beal at this point in his career and that contract, it's overrated. So, it doesn't make sense, the Bradley Beal. But I've been using the phrase on this show, pause year. And everyone's like, oh, that's scary. It's a scary term. Pause year doesn't mean anything. You could still make the playoffs with Tyrese Maxey and Joel Embiid. You just saw it with the Miami Heat make the finals. If you protect Joel Embiid enough, and if he happens to have a healthy, healthy-ish, entrance into the playoffs, who knows what can happen? The Lakers made the Western Conference Finals as what were they, the 8 or the 9 seat? So, the pause year term scares people, but we should really be, like you said, working on developing Tyrese Maxey, figuring out what he has, figuring out DeAnthony Melton. Because you heard, when Nick Nurse spoke with Windhurst, he talked about not just unlocking Maxey. He mentioned the name of DeAnthony Melton. And you've got other guys, whether they bring back Paul Reed or not, I don't know if they can. I would like them to, but I don't know if they can. You got him, you got McDaniels, you got all these young guys, Springer.
Yes.
Let Nick Nurse unlock these young kids, protect. I don't care about load management this year for Joel Embiid. Just worry about winning 45 games, 40 games. Make the playoffs and see what happens. And then if you move Tobias the right way for the right return, then 2024 offseason, you might actually have money and the ability to really, really attack that right wing player or that right, guard to go with Maxey. And that's what I would do. That is 110% my plan. It's unpopular. I know we got Cole saying Tobias for Anthony Simmons. That would be great, but I don't think that would happen. I think Portland would want a little bit more there. Cole also saying he'd rather Ben Simmons back than CP3. I don't know about that. I don't think we could ever handle a Ben Simmons return to Philly. But that pause year term is not as scary as it sounds, right?
I'm good with it. Because I'm a player development guy. I'm obsessed with, watching young guys thrive from college sports to their professional sports. That's my thing. If you watch Party on Broad, I cover the NFL draft. And I haven't covered the NBA draft because the Sixers have no picks. Sad face. But that's what I love. I mean, you mentioned a big one, Jaden Springer. I think that guy can step on the court from day one and give you a great fit with Tyrese Maxey with his defense, on-ball defense. Lewis King is another guy I think because the Sixers are going to have
a lot of people tweeting his name, but I didn't watch the Blue Code, so I saw the last 2 games of the year where all these young guys were up. Lewis King, I don't buy the Mac McClung as a viable player in the NBA regularly, but everyone keeps hyping Lewis King. Tell me about Lewis King. What
he's like
get there?
He's a 6'7" dude. He's a wing. He's got great athleticism. Yes, thank you, Cole. Great athleticism, solid shooter. Can give you rebounding, little playmaking, ball handling. He can do a little bit of everything. He's a guy that that's kind of been Doc's failing. I got to give him credit for Tyrese Maxey, although that probably goes to Sam Cassell.
No, stop right there. I've been talking about it. Everyone wants to give Sam Cassell the credit for Maxey, but Doc Rivers the failure for the other players. It's got to go both ways. Maybe Sam Cassell's a little bit of the failure, and maybe Doc Rivers deserves a little bit of that credit for Tyrese Maxey.
Maybe, yeah. I'm not there. I don't know. I see him in his ear a lot between Cassell and Maxey. But outside of that, Doc is, one of his legacy in Philadelphia is not, giving young players a long enough leash to kind of grow into their role. I think there is something to that. As a Sixers fan, I'm excited to see a backcourt like a Melton. That's what we just talked about. Surrounding Maxey with these two-way 3-and-D type of guards that I think we could see Melton play a little more off ball and give Maxey kind of the reins and say, let's see what you got, man. And that's the negative with like a Bradley Beal. I know he's not a point guard, but he's going to demand the ball. I mean, you let's see what we got in Maxey, and that's exciting. That's exciting because I do think he gives you everything you are looking for out of a Bradley Beal, and then some. And I think his defense is underrated. I thought he had flashes this year in several moments where there is a thing. He's 22 years old. Jaden Springer is as young as a draft pick in this year's draft. There are some promising pieces on here, but it's up to Nick Nurse now to kind of unlock that. To be fair, he's a coach that came from Toronto, and one of his biggest issues was not playing the kids enough. But also to be fair, like that roster construction was not good in Toronto. It hasn't been good the last couple of years. So just some quick thoughts.
But if we go with that route with the pause year, and we're not bringing back Harden, which I still actually think I would put it probably in the 65-75% range that Harden is back next year. I really do think that they're going to try to that phrase, the maximize Joel championship window, which I think is an overused phrase. I really do. But I think they think that, so there's a good chance that he's back. But if they don't, they do still need a ball handler to go opposite Tyrese Maxey because they don't have one. Maxey can't be the starting point guard. D'Anthony Melton, I don't even want him starting to begin with. I love him coming off the bench playing 20, 25 minutes a game. Then where do you go with the little assets, the no money they have? How do you go get a point guard? You still got to lock up McDaniels if you want to keep him. You got to try to find a way to keep Paul Reed, which, again, I'll say it again, I don't think they find a way. I think a team gives Paul Reed a much bigger deal than we are capable of matching at that point. But
I hope not, man.
Where do you go to find a guy that's going to – is Fred VanVleet really the option that you can afford? Because
I don't know how you afford him.
And that's the thing. Like, he just turned down what was his option for, like, $25 million? He's looking for more than $25 million a year, and I just don't know how it works.
Yeah, I don't know either. I don't have – you want answers. There aren't a lot of answers. It's probably going to be Melton and Maxey if Harden doesn't return in your starting backcourt. I don't know if Jaden Springer is ready to take on that role. When I'm pumping up Jaden Springer, I'm talking about a respectful 10 minutes off the bench. But who's going to be your one? Let's see what we got in Maxey, man. I would roll with that. And that's just the situation the Sixers are in. Maybe they'll bring in a guy, making an MLE, but that's what the Sixers are dealing with. They have to build this internally. If they bring McDaniels, if they re-sign Paul Reed, they don't have options.
Yeah, no, they don't have any options really. And that brings me to that point on Paul Reed. I know you're a big Paul Reed fan. Every Sixers fan is a Paul Reed fan. But so where do they go with the backup center? They don't have the money to bring in a backup center. You kind of have to try to keep Paul Reed. But I keep telling people, and people think I'm nuts, that I forget exactly the number, but Charles Bassey got a 3-year, $28 million deal from the Spurs when he left. If Charles Bassey, with the little amount of exposure he got that deal, Paul Reed's going to get a $10 million a year offer from somebody. And there's no way the Sixers could do it. So you better hope that kid coming over from Europe, whatever, I don't even want to try to say his name.
Petrusev?
Petrusev?
Yeah.
I don't know. I got to write things like that down phonetically so I can remember.
He stinks. Dude, he shot 35% from the field or something this past year.
And everybody's hyping up the next big Euro guy just because the Joker just won an MVP or just won an NBA Finals and stuff like that.
Can't shoot, man.
Daniel, I don't know if the Daniel House option, Mitch, being picked up is because they want Daniel House back. I mean, it's a really great, cheap option. And I actually saw something special in Daniel House this year, not on the court, just personality-wise. But it's also a very viable trade. You can bounce out a contract or a trade with his $4 million contract if you need to. I think there's some of that as well.
Yeah. I'm excited to see Daniel House. Oh, sorry, I'm getting some echo. I'm excited to see Daniel House have a more defined role. That's that's the thing with Nick Nurse, man. I think, for anything, he's a great defensive coach. And I think there's a lot more that can be unlocked with a Daniel House, with a Paul Reed. God, I would hate to see Paul Reed leave this offseason, because I think he's a Nick Nurse guy. That's exactly what he wants to do. Get out in transition, cause steals, create that chaos that Paul Reed brings. We saw it in Toronto. So that pains that the idea of like a Paul Reed not coming back would be just, I don't know.
Are you going to go? Are you really going to find a way when you need a point guard? You need this. You need so much on this team.
I don't think the Sixers could afford to get rid of Paul Reed, because they need to push the pace more. And, Nick Nurse is not a guy that's going to push the pace great. Like, he's like a guy that's been in the middle of the pack when it comes to pace. But I do think he's a guy that could really thrive in a Nick Nurse system. What Nick Nurse's offense does is a lot of just getting rid of the ball. The ball moves really fast. A lot of starting from the elbow, guys flying off screens, guys cutting, a lot of DHOs. You're going to see a lot of Horns offense where you're going to see a lot of open cuts to the basket. I think Paul Reed would thrive in that situation. We haven't seen that yet. I think there's a lot of guys like Matisse Thybulle, when he was here, is a guy that thrived in the cut, but Doc never did it. So
but everything describing that would make Paul Reed thrive in this offense, Joel Embiid's like the complete opposite. How is Joel Embiid going to flow in a Nick Nurse offense? Like, we're going to learn how good of a coach Nick Nurse really is pretty quickly, because we just heard Doc Rivers talk with Bill Simmons about how James Harden didn't fit what he wanted to do. And Doc Rivers was basically too stubborn to change what he wanted to do to fit James Harden. Well, Nick Nurse, what he does not fit with Joel Embiid. Is Nick Nurse going to be the same stubborn SOB that Doc Rivers was? Or is he smart enough to figure out, well, I got to tweak what I do to fit Joel Embiid? Because Paul Reed and Joel Embiid are two totally different types of centers. Not just skill level, but styles-wise and all. And that scares me a little bit.
I agree. People keep talking about like who benefits the most from the Nick Nurse edition, and everyone's saying Embiid. Like, my take was Maxey.
Yeah.
I think he came here. I don't know. I don't have the answer. I did put out a tweet. I made a video of like old Toronto Raptors offense sets and old Brett Brown offensive sets, and a lot of Horns, a lot of DHOs, things that we have seen in the past that are kind of similar, of getting Joel Embiid moving to the basket. I think it is there, but I mean, he's got to have a plan at some frame of mind to get Embiid moving closer to the basket, because he can't be sitting out on the perimeter. I'm not saying he can't do that, but in the guts of the game in the fourth quarter, like, Embiid's got to sit his ass down in the paint and get buckets and get to the free throw line. And that's kind of been his niche, is that come playoff time, second halves, he loses his legs and he's not as effective. And that's what I want to see from Nick Nurse, is at building an offense that gets Joel Embiid moving towards the basket and away from the perimeter.
You just said he loses his legs by the fourth quarter. I hope Nick Nurse does something that I haven't even thought of this entire offseason yet. My least favorite thing Doc Rivers did with Joel Embiid through his whole time here was he played Joel Embiid for the full 12 minutes of the third quarter every single game. And then he had to sit for 6 minutes. And when he got back in there with 6-7 minutes left in the fourth quarter, he still was spent. Like, can we not play a 7'2", 285-pound giant for 12 straight minutes? You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't make any sense to me. I mean, maybe in the playoffs, but game 47 of an 82-game season, you don't need your center playing 12 straight minutes in the third quarter. Like that never sat right with me. And maybe Nick Nurse could do that different. So maybe Joel Embiid can be fresher for fourth quarters.
I mean, there's something. I mean, and to Doc's credit, there's something to be said when Joel Embiid didn't play. What did we see from the Sixers? They pushed the ball, they pushed the tempo, they got Maxey going, and I'm not saying there was more creative, offensive sets, but the Sixers do. I do believe, I am hopeful that the Sixers do have some pieces like Daniel House that can Paul Reed that can provide that. So we'll see. It's up to Nick Nurse, man, to find out and create those lineup combinations. And to be fair, this is the most I've ever given Doc Rivers any kind of positivity. because I'm not a Doc Rivers guy. I've never been. But, he did kind of ride Paul Reed a bit this season, which we've been pounding the wall for. So I do think the bench is better, has more upside than we've seen under Doc Rivers.
I will say, and just so you hear it too, I mean, the Daniel House, I don't love him as a player. I think he's a back end of the bench guy on a championship team. He's not a regular minutes guy on a championship team. But I saw something in him because he came in here, was promised by Morey a spot. He lost his spot in the rotation. And then an opportunity opened up for him. And he was ready for that opportunity. And so like I always use the old wrestling term, Mojo. Somebody told me it was Mojo Rawley. I didn't even remember the guy's name. It's like he didn't have to get hyped. He stays hyped. Daniel House did not have to get ready to play. He was ready at all moments. And when a guy is always ready at a moment's notice and keeps putting in the effort off the court, on the bench, staying engaged, that was something that, with the proper coach using him in the right way, can be a great culture guy that can really be valuable to a team in this situation.
Yep, that's what we talked about. Like, so, Nick Nurse, that system, who's going to be able to operate it? Who's the ball handler that's going to be able to come in and, operate the system? I mean, the Sixers have a lot of question marks, I'm excited. Usually, like, after the season, this is weird, man. Like, I'm excited right now. Usually, after the season ends, I need like 2 to 3 months off. I'm like, I need to just de-escalate and decompress and get back to it. Look, it's freaking June. The NBA draft hasn't happened yet. I'm already like ready. I'm ready to go.
Everybody's all hyped about trying to figure out who's going to be next to Maxey in the backcourt. Harden, Chris Paul, Bradley Beal, Fred VanVleet. That's not what excites me because I still think it's either going to be James Harden or none of the others. Okay, that's just what I feel. But what I'm excited about is the Tobias Harris situation. I'm a big Tobias. Let me preface this. I don't know if you know this. I'm a huge Tobias Harris fan. I support him, with my last dying breath. I love the guy. But even I know that he's probably got to go. And I hate the NBA trade machine with a passion. I think too many. It's that in mock drafts that everybody puts out. I hate them because so many people don't know what they're talking about. You know what you're talking about. You put the effort in to researching these guys. But there's so many people that do mock draft 37.4, mock draft 32. Trade. I've seen 3,000 Tobias Harris trade proposals, and 90% of them aren't even remotely viable because they're not putting draft picks in. They're not doing anything else. But Tobias Harris, he's got to get moved this offseason. Mm-hmm. The question is, I know it wouldn't work straight up, but Cole had said before, for Anthony Simmons, for Tobias Harris, do you want Tobias Harris to get traded with whatever other pieces you want to put into it for a single player that's going to make this team, better? Or do you think, because I think this is the way they should go, they should be looking to move Tobias Harris for 2 or 3 role players, 2 or 3 guys that could fill out this roster to help build the culture, to help build your bench out. That's what I would be doing, is looking for multiple pieces. Yeah, lesser talents, but multiple guys.
I agree. I think any Tobias Harris trade starts and ends with adding, young wings to this roster. I think if you can find, young wings and floor spacing, I think there are definitely some options. Anthony Simmons is a really good one. I agree, Judd. The Warriors trade, Jonathan Kuminga and Jordan Poole, is a really interesting trade. Jonathan Kuminga is a great two-way wing with upside. Jordan Poole is a good scorer. Assuming if James Harden leaves, Jordan Poole would kind of give you that scoring that you need. We've seen it when Steph was out. Poole was a big contributor there. I've got so many Tobias Harris trades. I don't know if you want to hear.
We've got about 47 of them so far on this show. So, throw some at me, and I'll tell you if we because I think I had Scott on from DSM, and he brought up the Poole and Kuminga, or maybe I was on his show and he brought it up. I just don't know. So many that we've gone through, there's very few that I've said somebody else can't beat that. Okay. And that's the problem that I've had is like Poole and Kuminga, they're young players. Like, you're telling me that Tobias Harris, and I don't even know who else you would include in that to spice the value a little bit. You tell me somebody can't beat that for those 2 players. Like, that's where I'm at with so many of these options.
Let's go. I'll do a Golden State and Toronto deal,
Okay.
and Sixers deal. Golden State receives Tobias Harris.
Okay.
No, this is Golden State. Yeah, Golden State. We'll also send PJ Tucker to Toronto. The Raptors will get Isaac Okoro. Sorry, the Cavs. The Cavs. My bad. This is a 4-team deal.
God,
I have made so many. But anyway, a Tobias Harris deal that includes maybe a Pascal Siakam. If you could add some things to that, he would be a really good addition. Like a guy that doesn't need a lot of usage, a guy that can rebound, floor space, run the court. How about John Collins and Bogdan Bogdanovic for Tobias Harris and Furkan Korkmaz from Atlanta? Any thoughts on that?
I am not a John Collins fan. I actually I was on another basketball show 2 weeks ago. Somebody presented that to me, and I said specifically, did John Collins actually regress this year, possibly?
He did, big time.
And so that scares me. Like John Collins doesn't. You need a guy that can stretch the floor. You know what I mean? You need more than John Collins. I don't think you're better with John Collins. And I'd rather just keep Tobias Harris than bring in John Collins.
And let him expire. It's fair. It's totally fair. It's not like he's hurting you. It's just not fun. Running it back with Harden, Tobias, and Embiid. We know where that story goes. How about this one? This is a sexy one. The Buddy Hield trade, where you get a guy that can fly off the edge.
I've had like four Buddy Hield trades thrown my way. So which one do you have?
All right, let's do Buddy Hield, and I'm going to do the number 29 pick in this year's draft for Tobias Harris.
I had somebody else propose that, but they said you had to throw Springer in on that deal to make it viable. I would do it with Springer or without, because you're getting a first round pick. You're getting another young player for Nick Nurse to sink his teeth into. He gets to pick the guy versus Springer being whatever. Maybe you could take Springer out of that and throw somebody else in there to maybe they'll take Furkan. I don't know. I would love Buddy Hield. Because Buddy Hield, I think, he's peaked. He's not getting any better. He's not young anymore, so to say. But it is what we miss and what we don't have. A viable 3-point guy that could just go out there and knock down shots. All right, let me give you one. And this is one that I'm told is really stupid. But I love it because I'm constantly looking for people that have, or teams that have guys on 2 or 3 years left that they don't want to pay those contracts anymore. All right. So I looked at Utah, and Utah's got Lauri Markkanen. Stretch 4, had a huge season. He's got 2 years left on his deal, and Colin Sexton, who's got 3 years left on his deal. Their 2 contracts combined equal Tobias. Utah might be trying to flip those assets already. You get Tobias' expiring contract for Utah. You got to throw somebody else in, a young player. I don't know how they find a draft pick to trade, but Tobias for Sexton and Markkanen. You get a stretch 4, you get another guard that can ball handle a little bit. You get him for 2 years to pair with Embiid and Maxey, and you roll with it.
I would do that trade. I don't know why Utah would.
You're going to have to find something else to put in there to find the value. You need a third team involved in that deal somehow.
Yeah, I think that's a big piece is that, I think the Sixers, Daryl Morey should be involved as many 3-team deals as possible. If James Harden walks, fucking do a 3-team deal and get some asset for it in a sign and trade. Just get something, because I don't think they could trade a pick until like 2030, like their pick. Like they got nothing. They are
2029 is the next first round pick. That's why I like the Indiana, because you actually have a draft pick now. Whether you retrade that somewhere else or whatnot. What about the one that I keep going back to that I put up here is Tobias Harris for Bullock, Kleber, and Bertans from Dallas. You get 3 role players. And I remember hearing rumors somewhere along the way last year that Dallas was interested in Tobias Harris.
Mm-hmm. What was the trade? One more time.
Reggie Bullock, Maxi Kleber, and Bertans, and they're really just trying to get off of that atrocious Bertans contract. He's still got $36 million owed over the next 2 years. And you have to throw him in to make the money work. Yeah. Reggie Bullock's on the last year of his deal, but Kleber's got 3 years left on his deal. Bertans has got a couple years left. I just like the idea of Reggie Bullock, on our team right now.
I guess. I mean, it's not a sexy trade.
Oh, it's not sexy at all.
That's the reality of a Tobias situation is if you're making this deal, you're just trying to get out of that contract. That's one of my least favorites. I would probably just prefer to just keep him and just let him walk.
Which keeping him that, you know what I've been trying to say over the last couple of days to people is that not trading Tobias is not a bad thing. You know what I mean? Because he still could score. If you lose Harden, Tobias could hypothetically get back up to over 20 points a game. Plus, if the Sixers aren't set, then is his contract more valuable at the trade deadline than it is in the offseason right now? And that's something that's kind of been percolating in my mind. You run it back with him. He makes up some of the Harden loss in points. And then if we're going to be the 8 seed, 9 seed, maybe somebody wants him, at the deadline to be that missing extra piece for their championship run. And then you maximize his trade value there.
I think there's still upside to Tobias Harris. I might be in the minority, but if you get him into an offense that gets him the ball early in the shot clock, gets him moving, when we see Tobias Harris look decisive, when he's cutting and, looking to score the basketball, I think there is still some Tobias Harris, good basketball left. He's not a bad basketball player by any means. So if he's, one of the top 1 or 2 guys in an NBA offense, I don't know how much you're winning with that, but I do think there is upside.
Yeah. There was one, you had mentioned Siakam. I've been digging through. I've got so many pages of notes on trades here in the last couple weeks. I did see one more. It might have even been from you. And it did involve Siakam, but not coming to Philly. It was a 3-team trade. We ended up with Boucher and Gary Trent out of it.
Yes.
The Blazers got Siakam, and the only other player outside of Harris we gave up was Furkan. So the Blazers got Siakam and Furkan. We got Boucher and Trent. The Raptors get Harris, Simons, and a couple picks from the Blazers in that deal. And somebody else had proposed that. I thought it was interesting because Trent and Boucher would interest me here. I just don't want to fall into the trap that Daryl Morey did with bringing all the Rockets to Philly. I don't want all of Nick Nurse's Raptors here in Philly as well.
Yeah, fair. But I think Gary Trent Jr. is a great player that would fit in really well here. Big time fit. And I love Chris Boucher. I've been one of his big supporters. I think I would do that trade in a heartbeat. I think that's one of my favorite trades.
And the Blazers would give up the picks that the Raptors want to get Siakam to pair with Dame Lillard. So when people say, well, why would the Raptors do that? Because they're looking for another star to pair with Dame Lillard. They get Siakam, and the Raptors get all the first-round picks from the Blazers to start their rebuild if that's what they're sort of kind of doing.
I think that's what you need to do. Get some sort of wing floor spacer in a Tobias trade, especially a guy that can get shots up. That's what the Sixers need to get out of this. They need to increase their shot volume from 3 moving forward. They can't be that slow. And they were a great shooting team last year. Don't get me wrong. They were, I think, number 1 in spot ups and 3-point shooting. But they need to get more. Like when you're trying to build an offense through Joel Embiid, the floor spacing was not good enough. We all saw it. And I think a big part of that is Tobias, the pump fakes, PJ Tucker, the hesitancy from 3. Like I want guys that still kills me that they got rid of a guy like Isaiah Joe to keep a veteran bum here in Philadelphia. Like Isaiah Joe, he's nobody, but he's a guy that has zero fear when it comes to jacking up 3-pointers and off the bench.
And we do need that. We did need that. We did miss that. I just think some of Isaiah Joe's flashier games with OKC were, I don't know. I always say average and bad teams, somebody gets points. And Isaiah Joe was one of those guys that I just look back at some of the bad Sixers teams, dating back from before you were even born. You know what I mean? There's always when we traded Charles Barkley, the guy that led does anybody know who led the team in Sixers in scoring the next year? Nobody knows, but somebody did. The Sixers were really bad the year after Charles Barkley got traded. I think his name was Jeff Malone or something like that. He averaged 17 points a game. It was him and Jeff Hornacek or something like that. Bad teams have people score. You know what I mean? Because somebody's got to get. You're not going to get shut out. So that's all there is there. I will give you one more. I'm going to give you homework, okay? Because I don't do the trade machine very well. I don't know how to make it work. I made a bold thing. It's dumb. It's insane. I got told it was insane, but I did a whole show around it, and the viewership, because I said it, went through the roof because everyone told me how dumb I was. You're losing James Harden. Chris Paul's available. Can we find a way to make a 3-team trade work where we get a sign and trade with James Harden to Phoenix, Chris Paul goes to L.A. to play with the Clippers, and we get Kawhi Leonard back, and we run back the Nick Nurse championship team that way?
Absolutely.
Can you find a way that it makes it work? Because I don't know how the money's going to work, and I don't know who else we're going to give up. Everyone thought I was completely nuts for wanting Kawhi Leonard, who plays 60 games a year. But I'm like, no, I think it's fantastic. Let him play 60 games a year. Let Joel play 55 games a year, and let's have him help the playoffs. Get the 8th seed. A Joel and Kawhi Leonard and Tyrese Maxey team runs through the playoffs, in my opinion. If they're healthy.
I mean, we are literally running through options for winning a championship right now in 2023, 2024. I think there's way better possibility, way better odds that Nick Nurse finds some sort of magic with Kawhi Leonard, with a Joel Embiid, and just tries to reinvigorate this roster lineup combination in the playoffs. I think I would do that 1,000%. I mean, Kawhi, I wouldn't trade Maxey for Kawhi. I wouldn't trade.
No, Maxey's not involved in this at all. No. The only thing we're doing is signing and trading away James Harden. I mean, I don't know if Stringer or the rights to Paul Reed or something else has to be involved, but Maxey and Embiid are not involved in this deal. Tobias Harris is not involved in this deal because then you're going to trade him for more pieces to add to this new trio here. So,
that's one of those like Lakers kind of moves where like they will probably be god awful in the regular season. They'll probably just like be like a late seed in the playoffs, but come playoff time, like you don't. And if they're healthy, like they're ready to go. Like I'm down for that. I would do that.
I'm 100% down for it, and I haven't been able to get that out of my head since I proposed it at complete randomness on a show. So I'm stuck on it, and I want Kawhi. I wanted Kawhi Leonard the last time he was a free agent, and I think he even met with the Sixers at that time. So, at least there's a little bit of love. Look, the Sixers are what they are. We've got a long offseason, guys, to continue this conversation. But we got about 10, 15 minutes left of your time here. So I do want to just spend it. It's not all football Friday. Friday, we got Tim Sullivan joining me on the show here. And the reset, trending in the AM on Philadelphia Sports Network. We only got a dozen likes on YouTube, guys. Make sure we're pounding that like button. Subscribe and tune in every single day. But I do want to get my man's opinions on this Eagles offseason. And just what's about to happen. And you said it at the start of the show, the excitement that is brewing for this team. Like, I think, and I don't know if this is crazy to say it, the excitement I'm feeling coming off a Super Bowl loss into this year is greater than the excitement I had coming off a Super Bowl victory. Because we had the euphoria of the victory, and like it almost bought the Eagles time, like if they didn't win, whatever. But like the hunger that I have and the excitement I have for the season is greater than that. So what were your thoughts, generally speaking, of how this team improved this offseason so that next year, I mean, it just came out again, we are now the betting favorites to win the Super Bowl. I don't know, but I'm super pumped. And it's not just fan excitement to me. It's like legit, I think this team really can do it. And that's not blind loyalism saying that.
I think it starts and ends with the draft. I think they absolutely had one of the best drafts in recent memory. Jalen Carter, Nolan Smith. I think, if you had to pick like a few guys who had the most likelihood of getting real snaps, year one, it is Jalen Carter. I think like Bijan probably could get big time snaps if he was drafted by the Eagles. But Jalen Carter is a sensational prospect. Nolan Smith is just a lightning rod coming off the edge, just going to grow beautifully under Hassan Reddick. Great athlete. Heard great things about him during minicamp. You look at some other guys like Sidney Brown. I was really high on Sidney Brown throughout the draft process. He was one of my favorite guys. I was pounding the table, mocking him to the Eagles many times. A guy that's going to fly around. The Eagles haven't had a safety like that that's as athletic and wants to hit and go sideline to sideline like Sidney Brown in a while. I think he's an underrated addition. And then you got like guys like, big time prospects like Keely Ringo, I think probably won't play a lot in 2023, but he's got crazy upside. And I think for me, that's where I'm excited. Again, I am a player development dude. And you look at this young defensive team, Milton Williams, 24, Jordan Davis, 23, Nakobe Dean, 22, Jalen Carter, 22, Nolan Smith, 22. This team is being rebuilt, retooled defensively. And that's like, I'm old school, man. I love that. I love that and you got so many picks coming next year. I think they have like 4 or 5 top 100 picks coming next year. So the fact that you're rebuilding the defense with Georgia, Alabama, SEC players, how exciting is that?
Oh, it's fantastic. And you just mentioned with these young players, like there's two names you mentioned that nobody. Well, some people are talking about one of them, but the other one's not getting enough love. Milton Williams is not getting enough love at all. I think Milton Williams, excuse me, could be a more valuable asset to this defense this year than even Jordan Davis. Like he has the chance to play significant snaps and make significant difference on this defense. I'm a huge Milton. In his small sample size last year, he did so great. And you're talking about all these rookies that we're bringing in and what they're going to do. It's almost like you got another rookie, but he's got a year of development, and that's Nakobe Dean. And the fact that, like, you could almost classify him in that rookie class because he played so little on defense last year. The fact that we've already handed him the mic, you know, in OTAs just says how high they are on him. And when you say Kelly Ringo might not play a lot this year, but with this team and the way they spend time developing their young players, as you see with some of these guys, next year it's almost going to be like having another rookie out there that just sat and learned, held the clipboard, just played special teams, did whatever. This team is set up to make a run now. This team is made a set up to make a run next year. And this team is set up to make a run 5 years from now. And I think that is what is so key about this. What excites me, this is not a one and done or a 2 year and done run this Eagles team is going to be on. This is a long-term plan here of sustained success again.
So this is where my head goes. I did a whole show on this because, like, when I try, like, my thing in sports, my thing in Philly sports, yes, it is. I agree that the expectations for Nakobe Dean are wild. I think they eventually add there to the linebacker position, and they will. But yeah, those are some huge expectations.
Would you add linebacker or safety first right now?
Linebacker, no question.
Gotcha.
Yeah. I'm excited to see what they got with Sidney Brown. I think Reed Blankenship had a very good season. I'm excited to see where he goes. Who's the other guy? Terrell Edmonds.
Terrell Edmonds, yeah.
I'm not worried about safety. I'm worried about safety, but linebackers definitely got a bigger question mark in my mind. I think Reed Blankenship was good against the run. He was good against the pass. And I don't think he's a starter, but he can fill in the way that the Eagles like to rotate like three safeties. I think they're fine there.
Okay.
So for me, what was the question?
What was the question? You were going to say something, then I cut you off to ask about the linebacker or safety.
Well, I mean, like Christian Ellis is a linebacker that apparently looked really good. He had 2 interceptions during.
Josh Allen doesn't have a wide receiver chatter to throw to right now. I know you've just been waiting to throw some kind of.
Oh, that's right. No, I remember now. All right, so the question I had was like, I like to stay even keel. Like when I get excited, like the devil on my shoulder is like, well, wait. Like that's how I view analytics and things. I only use that just to kind of confirm. I don't listen to radio. I don't listen to like other sports talk stuff. I kind of like try and make my own opinion. So I made a list of why they might have a Super Bowl hangover because that's my take. Is like I try to like think, well, if I'm like here, well, then let's go a little bit back a little bit. They lost both coordinators. You know, I like the replacements they added, but that is definitely a question mark. Could they take a step back there? Absolutely. You talked about Nakobe Dean. You know, that's definitely going to be a question mark. The health of the running back group is definitely a big question mark. Swift, you look at Perry. Those are guys that could play like a handful of games next year. It probably doesn't really matter who's running behind that offensive line, but it is what it is. O-line depth. Lane, when he's not playing, the Eagles don't win. Lane is the best right tackle in Eagles history. I'll say it now. And that's a fact. You can't argue with those stats.
I mean, I can make a statement that Lane's probably a first ballot Hall of Famer. So
yeah, he's that good. He's so vital to the Eagles' success. You look at some other things like the last time that I guess this has nothing to do with this year, but the last 3 times the Eagles made the Super Bowl, the following season was not great. You know, so that there is something to that, but. I'm so excited, man. I'm so excited.
These Super Bowl hangovers, because there is I don't know what the stat is anymore, but there was a time years ago where there was a stat floating around that the team that loses the Super Bowl misses the playoffs every single year. It was nonstop. The team would always have that hangover after losing. But did any of those teams have Jalen Hurts?
That's the Jalen Hurts variable is everything. I don't.
Variable is like I am the only local guy that will openly admit when he's wrong 110%. I've been wrong about countless things in my content creation career, how short it's been, but I was not wrong on Jalen Hurts. I'll just say it right now. It's my proudest moment as a guy calling this Jalen Hurts. I didn't think he would be that good that quickly, but picking out Jalen Hurts because I liked him in the draft. I didn't want him coming to Philly because I also liked Carson. But so I was wrong on Carson, obviously. But that Jalen Hurts factor, I mean, it's hyped up, but I don't even know if it's hyped up enough.
Well, I expect a regression. Unpopular opinion. I expect Jalen Hurts to regress this year. Yeah. There are definitely, when you try and talk about like how Jalen Hurts can take that next step, man, there are a couple areas like he can be better with the deep ball. I mean, his success with the deep ball is great, but I would like to see the Eagles kind of scheme that better rather than just lob it up. You could look at third downs. His completion percentage was pretty poor on third downs, especially on long third downs. But like, are we really going to have expectations for Jalen Hurts to be a top 3 MVP candidate every single year? I'm not there yet. Now, if he does it this year, then I'll say 1,000% yes. But like that season he had last year was magical, absolutely magical. I expect a little bit of regression, just like the Eagles on defense. Yeah, I could definitely foresee the Eagles struggling at bits and pieces in 2023. But that Jalen Hurts off the field, that Jalen Hurts culture, that Jalen Hurts like mentality, man, I don't think he's going to allow it. That's how special.
Last week on All Football Friday, the whole show was centered around the phrase or the line, if Jalen Hurts doesn't regress and just stays equal to last year, is that considered a successful season for Jalen Hurts? And that's what I think. Like if he doesn't, like, because there's no way he can jump again the way he jumped from the year before to last year. So just staying the same is almost like jumping forward in my mind. And that to me, like if he just doesn't regress, if he just stays the same, I mean, it's also I talk a lot about on this show timing in sports. So even if he regresses a little bit, even if the defense regresses a little bit, it's not like there's that many other great teams in the NFC to stop the Eagles. So even how hard our schedule is, like we're still gonna win our division. Probably we're still going to be one of the favorites to make the championship game in the NFC. Like there's not much standing in our way because the timing is perfect for the Eagles right now to have this group of guys together.
Yeah, and the fact that they're doing it internally is so exciting, man. Look at. I hope you're watching Daryl Morey because like that's how you do it. I'm glad the Flyers are finally making a commitment to rebuilding it organically internally. That's how it should be done. And that's what the Eagles are doing. Again, they have tons of picks next year, whether to use or do in a trade if it comes up. But that's so exciting. Again, the defense, man. The list of players we just went over is just so exciting.
All right, so we always have to try to find 1 minute to talk Buffalo for my man, the Met. Well, he's the Mad Chatter this week. Last week he was Iconic Chatter. The week before that he was Johnny Chatter. I have no idea who this dude is. I don't even know. It could be anybody. I don't know. But he wants to know about Stefon Diggs. So, yeah, Stefon Diggs did leave practice or he didn't show up to practice or there's something going on in Buffalo there. Closing moment. Do you even know what's going on in Buffalo there? Did you even see
No,
that?
I have no idea. I mean, maybe is he asking?
He walked out of practice or he showed up and then walked out right away. And so he skipped mandatory workouts yesterday.
All right.
Seems like he's questioning Josh Allen's work ethic is what it is.
Good for Buffalo. I have zero desire or motivation to learn what's happening in Buffalo right now. It's June. It's June, Mad Chatter.
Yeah, let them blow up there in Buffalo. Who cares? Blow it up there. We're going to wrap it up right there. Trending in the AM here on Philadelphia Sports Network. My man, thank you so much. What do you got? What's on the horizon here for you on Party on Broad and Edge of Philly this week? You got anything new dropping? Any new videos or anything?
So I have been regretting this day for a long time. So it's the Sixers off season. Right. So there's not a lot of things to talk about. So we've been, as you know, we've been doing these trade scenario shows. We did one with Embiid. We did one with Tobias Harris, and today we are doing one at 6 p.m. on Tyrese Maxey. And I promise you, some of them you'll go, well, if James Harden does come back, and I guarantee you some of them will make you hesitate, but I've been regretting this day for a long time. This is 2 weeks of preparation, and that's at 6 p.m. tonight. We will be showing some trade proposals for Tyrese Maxey. My soul is just dying on the inside. The great Sean Bernard will be joining. He's got like 8 of them himself. So that'll be fun. Friday, we'll be doing the top 10 prospects in the 2024 NFL draft in the ACC. Again, I've covered top positional rankings, every single one of them in the 2024 NFL draft. And now we're breaking down the top Power 5 conferences, and then we'll wrap it up with some underrated guys. On Monday, we did an all-time Eagles draft.
I saw that.
That was really fun. I think my team's the best, so we will be putting polls out, and you can vote for who you think has the best. Do you remember NFL Blitz?
Yes.
It's a great game, right? So we did it. It's like a 7-on-7 all-time current and past Eagles players. Party on Broad is Wednesday.
All I'll say is Jeff Warner. He jumped the gun and took Jalen Hurts way too quickly. I'm just gonna say that, Jeff. I've done shows with Jeff plenty of times. He jumped the gun there. It was Jeff that took Jalen Hurts, right, with his first pick. I mean, Brian Dawkins. I'm sitting there watching that show, and Brian Dawkins is sitting there in his plate, and he goes and he takes Jalen Hurts.
Yeah, I got Dawkins and I got Mad Chatter. I got T.O. In the second round. So I was feeling pretty good. So that was fun. I want to do more shows like that. So I'd love to have you come on and do more of those like draft shows, like where we can because there's nothing really to talk about until the summer Sixers start.
I do this 5 days a week. It's hard sometimes pulling teeth for ideas.
Yeah, I don't know how you do it, bro.
Luckily, Twitter provides me with a lot of creative ideas. And look, when you do your Maxey trade thing today, there's a chance next week I'm tackling it. Sean Bernard on this show like once or twice a month. Like, I hope one of his trade proposals is really bad so that I can bring him on the show and love him for that bad idea.
Yeah. I expect I'm prepared. I'm ready to handle it, but you're prepared for the flaming.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what we do though. We just present the ideas. It's up to you to accept it or hate it, whatever. But
yes.
I appreciate you coming on this morning. I know it isn't easy. You're battling a cold just like me for the last 600 years straight. So I appreciate your time this morning. Guys, if you're not, give him a follow at MrCrockpot, Edge of Philly Sports on YouTube. Check out his videos. All his videos are fantastic. So I appreciate your time this morning. And for Trending in the AM, Philadelphia Sports Network, I'm Phil Stiefel. We'll see you tomorrow. Tomorrow's going to be all Phillies because we've really ignored the Phillies and they're playing really well. So we'll spend tomorrow talking a lot of Phillies guys, plus whatever else you guys bring up in the comment section. So we will see you guys tomorrow. For Deibs, I'm Phil Stiefel. We'll see you tomorrow, guys.